Naofumi Iwatani has been researching. He's a doctor of some sort, more like a scientist. A scientist that has been researching this alien species, an alien species that they deemed as Venom. They're not sure what this symbiote even does, but one has gotten loose. But what Naofumi hasn't told anybody is that symbiote has latched onto him, and they have become partners. In a way, friends. They're not really sure what they are together, but they're perfectly bonded. And it seems that Naofumi has no restrictions when they are bonded completely. They used to go around crime fighting, but now now that everything has toned down, he goes back to his regular job, just with the symbiote with him. But during one of these research studies, someone begins to use sound waves, and it begins to react with his symbiote. They both begin to run out the room, hurting really badly. The symbiote is still latched onto Naofumi, luckily enough, and he runs out of the room. But when he opens the door, he sees a man with an eye patch. That man greets him in and asks him to come join them, that they know of his little secret, and they want him to come join them to fight the good fight. Naofumi doesn't really know what to say, tries to deny it, but even the man says that he doesn't want to tell anybody else, but he will have to if he doesn't come with them. So it's blackmail. I see. Fine, I'll do exactly as you wish. Naofumi goes with them, starts getting trained, and learns of this place where he is, called S.H.I.E.L.D. He begins to get trained by these people, but not too far into the training, he begins reading up on what his symbiote is, and even his symbiote begins to explain it as well. They even find some wreckage from the symbiote's home planet, reading in its own native tongue. Naofumi begins to read more and more about the symbiote. But as he does this, he begins to read some odd lettering that even his symbiote, that he names Venom, has no idea what the hell it even means.
No, Naofumi. I have no idea what that is. That is not part of my homeworld. What is that exactly? I have no clue.
Naofumi continues to analyze it, learning that it says something about the legendary symbiote hero. Just like them, maybe there's a symbiote hero at his homeworld, a symbiote that will bond and become this legendary hero? And they're not so sure, but as they remark this, everything begins to glow around them, and they're transported to a brand new place. Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I'm back with a brand new Naofumi What If. What if Naofumi was the legendary symbiote hero? Let me get a quick shout out to my boy King Titan X. This actually isn't his particle animation that I'm using, but he gave me the idea to start using the particle animations. I had a little chat with him, but then I found out that the editing software I use has a ton of effects, and I'm gonna start adding these effects. I feel like it's a really cool thing to add. I'll see what else I can do with them in the future, but I think it's a cool little addition. I mean, visually it's a little bit more pleasing to me to watch, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. So quick shout out to him for that. This isn't his particles, but if you guys want to know what I'm using to edit, it's called Wondershare Filmora. This is not sponsored. I wish it was, but yeah, that's what I'm using currently. So it has a ton of effects. I didn't even look through it enough, and I found all these effects. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy that. I'm not gonna waste much more of your time. I just wanted to say that really quickly. So I hope you all enjoy the What If, and let's just get right into it. Let's get it. Naofumi appears in a brand new world. He staggers to his feet and looks around quickly to see 3 other people. All 3 of them wielding various weapons. A sword, a bow, and a spear. He doesn't know what's going on and begins to speak with Venom, asking what is even happening, but Venom doesn't know either. He thinks that they might have got transported to a brand new universe, something that's happened in a long time ago, or happened a long time ago, but this feels different. He has no connection, it feels. There doesn't feel to be part of him in this universe, at least. not this one out of all of them. It's kind of odd. He suspected that there was a hive mind connection with all of the other universes, but this one, he's very unknown to it. He has no knowledge of it, and maybe he just doesn't exist in this world at all. He begins to question this, but this could mean a various amount of things. But just as they're speaking about this to each other, they're cut off by the other three heroes questioning who each other are. They introduce themselves to each other by the names of Motoyasu is the spear hero, the bow hero is Itsuki, and Ren is the sword hero. Naofumi introduces himself as well, but Naofumi doesn't seem to have a weapon. Venom chimes in and says that he probably doesn't have a weapon because he's the weapon. Naofumi assumed this as well because basically Venom kinda is. He's this symbiote that will attach onto him, or is attached onto him, that could act as a weapon, and they've seen that on multiple occasions and on their vigilante runs in the past. But why right when they went to go work with another place? Right when they went to go work with a place called S.H.I.E.L.D., they got transported to this brand new area. Maybe he has to deal with this first, and then his next journey will begin. But even a scientist, that's hard to believe. It's extremely hard for a scientist to believe in such a thing like that. Why would something like that even occur? It doesn't exactly make any sense to Naofumi. But after some introductions, Naofumi and the other three heroes are sent off to the kingdom, or at least the throne room within the kingdom. They head over following these knights, and they approach the king. Naofumi looks around to see that the king's face drops when he sees that there is no S.H.I.E.L.D. hero. Naofumi doesn't know this, but even Venom chimes in.
He seems surprised. We are not what he was expecting.
I see. I can even tell that. Look at his face. He looks like he's constipated.
He does look like he's constipated. What an idiot.
Naofumi then begins to speak with the king and ask about the bland face, about why he looks so odd. And the king shakes his head and says that he's not what he was expecting, which Naofumi asks what was he expecting, saying that, well, normally a S.H.I.E.L.D. hero appears. He's not complaining necessarily. The S.H.I.E.L.D. hero isn't a good guy. The king already wants to instill that idea, at least straight to Naofumi. He explains that the S.H.I.E.L.D. hero is not the best, and frankly, a lot of people know him as the devil of the S.H.I.E.L.D. And Venom chimes in the head of Naofumi, saying that this guy is definitely corrupt. You can just hear it in his voice. Naofumi agrees, but doesn't say this out loud. He begins to just listen to the king as he explains the waves of catastrophe. While explaining the waves of catastrophe, Venom is listening very, very closely. Maybe these waves are a portal back to their universe, but Naofumi is even questioning that as well. He's not so sure if that would be the case. That seems too easy. The waves of catastrophe are something they have to fight as heroes, so what would even occur? But the king then falls back and begins speaking about something. That Naofumi doesn't have a weapon. That how will he fight the waves? And Naofumi says that if he was truly summoned here as one of the heroes and it wasn't some sort of fluke, that he will be able to fight the waves. He'll figure out what his weapon is, and for the king not to worry about it. Naofumi feels that exposing Venom right now would be a terrible idea. Frankly, if he tells them that they have Venom, or that he has Venom, that they might actually think he's some demon. Venom agrees with this as well, thinking that the secret of him should stay, well, secret, at least in the meantime. So that's exactly what will happen. The secret will stay within both of them, and after some time of explaining, the king sends them to basically head to bed. Once they head to bed, all of them begin to speak about this world, about what they are seeing here. And they begin talking about their past experiences and where they came from. Naofumi just says that he was a scientist back in his home world, and he worked for a company called S.H.I.E.L.D. And he obviously didn't work for, well, S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, he was about to, but he just doesn't want to tell them exact details. He doesn't feel a need to. But then they bring up that this place, it's very similar to a video game. He asks Venom if this is the case, basically talking in his mind, as the symbiote, or Venom, explains that that is definitely the case. It seems like it's very similar to some of the video games that they have played together. And now this is something very interesting. How could this world be like a video game? And Venom doesn't know either, but he begins researching and looking at everything that basically Naofumi can see as well. Venom is more or less a research guide for Naofumi. He's gonna help Naofumi out the best he possibly can in showing him and teaching him anything he can figure out, at least while Naofumi is dealing with the other outer stuff, like talking to actual people and stuff like that. So Venom will be trying to figure that out while he talks to everybody else. They learn about video games, more and more of the video games. Naofumi hasn't actually played any of these type of video games though. This type of leveling system, MMORPGs, he doesn't really play those. That's not his thing. He's more of a shooter type of guy. But he doesn't really say that out loud. He just says that he has played video games, but he just, isn't too in-depth in all of these types of video games. He says he's played some, but in his world, they're definitely called something different. And they all agree and begin to basically crash course everybody on anything they can think about in terms of this type of video game, allowing Naofumi to learn more and more about various things. And that will be definitely beneficial in this world, especially. After a good night's rest, Naofumi and the rest of the people there, or the other heroes, head off back to the kingdom and head off back to the throne room. They begin speaking with the king, and the king begins to explain that they have a bunch of party members. These party members will choose if they want to join you. Venom says that he can tell by the sense of all of them that none of them are going to join Naofumi, that they think that he's a fake, so there's no reason for them to join. He also points out this girl, the girl with the red hair. He's not sure what her name is, but she has some foul intent. Naofumi says that just by looking at her, he can tell. It's kind of weird, and it's weird that he feels so strongly toward that woman that she's going to do something extremely bad. Venom agrees, saying that they have to definitely watch out for her. After everybody picks their parties, it's just Naofumi. Naofumi shrugs and says that it's okay. As a scientist, he's done a lot of his work on his own, making it seem as if he's some smart guy and blah blah blah. He is a smart guy, don't get me wrong, but he's also making it seem like he's not really worried about this. Even with the fact that he doesn't quote-unquote have a weapon according to everyone else. So he's actually given a good, decent amount of money. Given this money for actually to get some things for himself. Because frankly, when you're on your own, it makes things a lot harder. But he technically isn't on his own. He has Venom. And Venom makes this pretty apparent and says that they can take the 1500 silver and head straight to a weapon shop. He assumed that's here, and he might be able to actually kind of absorb one, or at least mimic one, because it seems right now he can only transform into his just bulky Venom state. He asks why he won't be able to manipulate weapons, at least off the bat, and Venom begins to explain the leveling system for him, saying that they have to actually see the weapon, or at least memorize the weapon, to actually manipulate the weapon. And this is something interesting that Naofumi was not expecting. He thought this would have been a lot easier, but it seems like there's going to be some hurdles they'll have to jump through, which Naofumi finds it fine. He asks about the regeneration factor and in terms of Venom being weak to certain things, and Venom also brings up that he does have strong weaknesses still to fire and sound. But it does seem like those weaknesses can go away with leveling, and that he can gain resistances. And he basically tells Naofumi that with resistances to sound and fire, there's going to be very few things that can actually defeat him, and that is a good thing to hear. But even with Venom's knowledge of at least what he knows right now, there still isn't enough for him to make a conclusion on certain things. So Naofumi and Venom head off to Erhard. They meet Erhard for the first time, a weaponsmith, and they begin speaking with him about various things and ask if they can see all the strongest weapons he has. And they begin to just touch them, not really envelop them or anything like that, but just touch them to see what they're like and how they work. They're actually able to show that they're able to manipulate it, and Erhard gets kind of mad, saying that you're going to run me out of business. Also, how is your sword so cool? It's like a black blade. That looks awesome. Naofumi then kind of explains that he has this weapon manipulation of some sorts. He doesn't explain Venom because frankly he doesn't trust Erhard that much just quite yet. But Erhard does seem disappointed that he's not going to be paying for any of those weapons. But quickly Naofumi drops 200 silver. It's not much out of his pocket, especially because he started with 1500. But he drops the 200 and says that he apologizes that he doesn't seem to have to buy the weapons, but he'll definitely hook the man up since he's been extremely helpful. And this definitely will get Erhard on their side really quickly. He explains that maybe that 200 silver isn't the accumulative of all of the weapons, but at the same time, it's not like he was getting rid of the weapons, so it works out. And Naofumi agrees, saying that he basically just made a free $200 or 200 silver. And this sounds great to Erhard. He loves the idea of making free money, more or less. So he basically thanks Naofumi and then has him head off, and he begins to train finally. He has various weapons now. We're talking swords, shields, axes, anything you can really think of, any basic weaponry, he has it, and it actually starts at a lower level. It seems like these weapons, all of them by the way, have its own leveling system, but the leveling system isn't too complex. They can actually just upgrade the weapons slowly but surely in terms of strength and ability, but the abilities are extremely limited. That's at least what it seems. The shield, on the other hand, definitely involves with the defenses. It seems like they can mimic certain defenses, and the shield is going to be a way for him to actually gain some resistances to fire and also sound. But that is still a problem though. How do you level up a shield? They try to begin to research that while they're fighting and slaying monsters, slicing through these small balloon-like animals. And they let the balloon-like animals or monsters attack the shield, but it actually seems like the shield is getting very, very minimal XP, in which obviously Venom explains that you could just say that killing things is a lot easier than trying to block a monster's blast or something, and that's a pretty basic explanation, but it's pretty obvious that trying to gain XP in that sort of way is extremely hard. But even so, they should be able to unlock various other abilities that the shield will eventually be able to enter, like something like a Venom-like shield prison in a way. And this is definitely something to look forward to. So Naofumi begins to just slice and dice through tons and tons of monsters for that entire day. But even that is kind of not the most beneficial thing. Slicing with his sword and then also blocking some attacks with his shield only gains like 1 level. His sword gains about 5 levels, but it seems like you could say there is no rapid XP gain in terms of Naofumi. It's very slow and steady. It might be because of the monsters they're fighting, but it also might be because that they don't have multiple people fighting in their party. Accumulative XP seems to be the most efficient way of training. And Naofumi even agrees with this, asking if Venom remembers about that video game that they played, the one with the shared experience.
Oh yes, I really like that game. What was it? Pokemon. Yes, the experience share. That was a really good game. That's a good idea, Naofumi.
Naofumi kind of laughs at this, remembering how much Venom actually did like that game, and they'd always play it in their off time on their DS and their Nintendo Switch. And they begin to say that there's probably a good way to actually do that by adding party members. But who would join their party, especially when they're the quote-unquote basically no weapon hero? Naofumi is not so sure, but as they begin to head back for the night, they actually do run into a group of bandits. The bandits begin to more or less threaten Naofumi, saying that they've heard that he's a hero, but he obviously has no weapon, so either give up all his money or die right now, in which Naofumi and Venom tell them that that is a horrible idea. Hearing Venom's voice, they get extremely scared, thinking he's some demon, as Naofumi says 2 words: mask on. And immediately, the Venom symbiote begins to envelop him once again. He's actually just been using the weapons on the monsters while running around, because he didn't want to in plain daylight go into full Venom mode. Yes, this does make him more tanky, this does make him more resistant to most attacks, but doing this at night, especially not getting caught up in front of other people, is a fine way of doing this. Venom says that he wants to bite their heads off, and Naofumi is about to say no, but frankly, he doesn't really care too much about this world, so he kind of just shrugs, and it says that he can do whatever he wants. They end up just eating all 3 of them, and this, ironically enough, gains them a decent amount of XP. But Naofumi does say that they shouldn't do that too often, and he begins to ask if he can only eat bad guys just like last time, and Naofumi nods, saying that bad guys are the only ones they can eat.
Oh, you know what? Fine. Bad guys. Bad guys, I eat bad guys. That's a good idea.
Naofumi then kind of laughs at this as someone else then approaches, shocked to see the whole transformation, but begins to laugh. Now that was impressive. Now, I've been watching you, Mr. Naofumi. I've heard you need some party members. How about some that are completely loyal? Naofumi's confused and looks back to see a little short man. This short man, though, begins to explain that he is a slave market owner and that he can actually give Naofumi some really beneficial people that can actually just bend to his whim, in which Naofumi isn't really the most happy about this, about slaves. That's kind of weird, but even Venom says that this world is a little bit different, so most likely slavery is legal. And Naofumi says that even morally, though, it's kind of messed up, in which Venom agrees, but even so, if they get one to more or less agree to just stay with them, it could become extremely beneficial. Also, Venom has an idea.
You see, there's this power that we have. I have an idea. With my Venom, well, you know, my symbiote power, I might be able to envelop someone else.
You mean at the same time?
Yes, at the same time. It's actually insane. I was reading the level ups, and then for some reason I can actually envelop multiple.
So me and someone else. That's actually really good. But wouldn't there have to be a bonding process?
Yes, a bonding process, just like the one before. But still, it would be beneficial.
Naofumi nods and says that he'll check out whoever this slave market whatever is. So they head in and begin to look at all the slaves, but Venom even says that one that is more humanoid would be more beneficial. Frankly, he doesn't want to venomize. I don't even know. Basically put the symbiote on someone that is more or less just a monster, because that could turn into some problems. Frankly, even if they were loyal to Naofumi, they might go haywire. So Naofumi does decide to try to find a humanoid-like monster, or humanoid, obviously, and he begins to look around, but only when he finds a little girl crying, and she has raccoon ears and a raccoon tail. Venom says that's perfect, that they can bring her in and actually save her, and frankly, they don't need no slave crest or whatever he's speaking of. And so Naofumi pays for her, and the slave market owner asks if he needs the slave crest, but Naofumi just shakes his head. And Venom even explains that they kind of have their own slave crest of some sorts. If she agrees to basically be taken over by the symbiote, she'll have her own awareness and also her own free will, but at the same time, she will be bonded to Naofumi even greater than some slave crest. Naofumi finds this to be a good idea as they take the little girl in. She's terrified. Naofumi comforts her, telling her that it's going to be okay, saying that they're going to get her, basically her flu or her cold-like thing or symptoms cleaned up, in which Venom says that if they just put the symbiote on her, that she should be cured from it, but Naofumi doesn't really want to do that at this moment, especially because she doesn't really know him very well. So he decides that that's actually a good idea that would make the bonding process for one easier, but maybe even more powerful. So Venom and also Naofumi begin to treat Raphtalia, learning more and more about these substances that they have to mix together and also basically get a perfect medicine for her. Getting that said medicine and making sure that she's completely cured. Eventually, this then leads to them going back to Earhart, getting Raphtalia some new armor, some weapons, stuff like that. Something simple though. She is a little girl at this point, so he doesn't want to get her some long sword or something because that really wouldn't be beneficial. Getting her 2 small daggers, making it very, very useful for her to be very fast and nimble when fighting. Naofumi takes her and begins to show her how to fight, explaining to her and showing her how exactly he fights. That it's not necessarily him, it's actually the partner that he has. She is confused. Partner? He then begins to get consumed by Venom and shows her exactly what he's talking about, in which she's not even scared. She's actually excited to see this and says that he's very similar to her and like her old family and friends and stuff. That he's kind of like a part monster himself. And he kind of smiles, and Venom sheds off part of the mask to show Naofumi, and he says he's correct, or that she's correct, that they are both monsters together. People thought Venom was a monster on his own, but when they bonded, they both became that said monster. It's like half monster, half human, but more like pure monster now that they've bonded completely. Venom, hearing this, is pretty touched.
You know, that's the first time I've heard you say something like that.
Venom, don't get so soft on me, okay? You're gonna make me cry. But with all that said and done, Naofumi just explains to her that there's nothing to worry about, really. That she doesn't have to worry about being accused as a monster or being basically crucified for that, because frankly, he is one. And she asks if anybody else knows, and he shakes his head no, saying that basically he doesn't want to deal with that extra backlash for no reason, especially when they already think that he's not one of the heroes. She's shocked. One of the heroes? Oh my god, like the shield hero or the sword hero, stuff like that? Naofumi nods and says that he's, well, and Venom chimes in.
The symbiote hero! Now that sounds cool!
Yeah, the symbiote hero. Raphtalia is excited to hear this and jumps up and down. And right after this, they begin their leveling up process. Beginning to level up Raphtalia and himself, they begin to train more and more, gaining some substantial levels. And, well, you could just say Venom was correct. The fact that Raphtalia is actually in his party and fighting with him makes the level gain way more efficient. And this is perfect. This will speed up their leveling process by a lot. So they decide to just continue leveling more and more. But then eventually they actually run into a problem. They need to find a place that would get them a decent amount of money. They've been spending a lot of money on armor upgrades and stuff like that, and also keeping Earhart in more or less in their own debt, because they want Earhart to be friendly with them no matter what, and eventually they want to spill the whole secret of Venom to Earhart as well. So they begin to basically buy from Earhart more and more to upgrade Raphtalia's weapons, and eventually they ask Earhart a place that they can go, or a village that would gain them some good money yields. And he explains that Loot Village is probably the best place for them to go, at least at the moment, and then maybe after that they seem to be strong enough to head to another village. Naofumi nods as they head to Loot Village. When they arrive, they begin selling anything that they possibly can, and Venom has actually been storing this stuff. He explains that there's somewhat of an inventory now within him. He's kind of like their own weapon, so they can actually store all their stuff within Venom. So Venom begins to show all the stuff to the people of Loot Village, in which they are actually not too terrified to see this black goo, or a big hand of black goo, handing them stuff. And for some reason, Naofumi even asks about this, and they say that they've seen weirder things, in which this does make Naofumi and Venom a little bit more comfortable about talking about basically what they are. But even with that said, they're not going to tell everybody, because frankly they don't trust everybody. But after some conversating and trying to get tips on making money, they do talk about this place, a place that they can actually mine some ores and stuff like that. So that's exactly where they go to get these ores, and they begin mining away. And it's pretty easy, especially with Venom, especially because he has his own like pickaxe of some sorts, and it's even stronger than the other one. So a couple swings and he has all the ores and gems broken off already. But as they're doing this, Raphtalia spots something and points it out immediately, and whimpers kind of to the ground, saying that that's terrifying. It's a giant monster. It's a dog monster. That's just like what killed my parents. And Naofumi is mad to hear this, looking toward the monster as it begins to charge toward Naofumi. he envelops himself in venom, changing, and the dog monster stops to a halt. The dog monster begins to whimper and is terrified of Naofumi, and Naofumi kind of laughs, and Venom does as well.
Little puppy, you're scared now, huh? Yeah, you thought you could bully us. Now we bully you.
Naofumi begins to beat down on the dog monster, obviously Venom as well, because that's the symbiote that's covering him, but they begin to beat down on the dog monster, and Raphtalia comes in and stabs it for the finishing blow. Naofumi is actually proud to see this, especially because she's got over her fear of this monster, at least to a certain extent, and those nightmares, hopefully they slowly but surely go away. There's no guarantee that they will. PTSD and being scared like that doesn't go away on an instant or on a whim, but it's still good to see her in a better state of mind. With all that said though, Naofumi takes Raphtalia out, and they begin to actually speak with her about something. About this whole symbiote bonding thing. That she can actually be one with Venom as well, and she's confused. Why didn't they bring this up sooner? But then they explain that they wanted her to be comfortable first. They didn't want to scare her away or make her more paranoid and stuff by saying that, oh, an alien wants to bond with her and make her like Naofumi. But she says that she would have most likely accepted on the first day, because nobody else has actually treated her in such a way, so nicely. But Naofumi's kind of confused, and Venom even chimes in.
That was nicely? Honestly, I get mad at Naofumi for not letting me play video games past 12.
Yeah, because we have work in the morning, idiot. Never mind. Naofumi then explains to her that that's how you treat a normal human being. And she's shocked to hear this because she's basically hasn't been treated like that since, well, her mother and father. And he gets kind of sad hearing this, thinking that his life was bad, her life was terrible. And after some conversating, she does agree to actually bond with the symbiote. Naofumi transforms back into his Venom form, taking a small piece of Venom off and putting it on the top of her head, as it begins to cover her and begins to bond completely, and then immediately just disappears. And Venom tells him that bonding has been completed. And they ask Raphtalia how she feels, and she says that she can actually hear Venom in her head. And he says that that's basically how it works. That he'll be able to conversate with her through basically her head, but he won't be able to talk through her own mouth because of the bonding with Naofumi, obviously, because that's like the core bonding. But they also say that if he dies, if Naofumi were to die, which God forbid, or whatever, then she would lose the bond with the symbiote as well, obviously. In which she nods, but she begins to figure out how to transform. She tells in her head to transform, and she transforms into a Venom-like demi-human. She is just like Naofumi, but her sword has changed as well. A black hilt and the sword, or the two daggers, have changed and have lengthened just about maybe 3 to 4 inches. And now she feels extremely strong. She's getting a large stat boost as well. The fact that she has the Venom symbiote has given her a crazy increase in power. So with this all done, it's now time for them to crack down on their training and their leveling up for the next month. And let's just say, this training with 2 symbiote users more or less, or at least a hybrid symbiote user, is going to be fruitful by all means necessary. They begin to do their leveling up, and it is extremely beneficial. They level up like crazy, and Naofumi being at a level of 50 by the end of it, and Raphtalia at a level of 38, about to be able to actually get her class upgrade already. Since the wave is definitely going to approach very, very soon, they head off to the Dragon Hourglass, at least to check how much time precisely is left. When they arrive, they actually are spotted by the other 3 heroes. The other 3 heroes begin to conversate with them, and Motoyasu hits on Raphtalia, but obviously Raphtalia isn't going for it by any means. She doesn't have any intention with Motoyasu and doesn't even like him at all. Doesn't really like his attitude, and frankly Naofumi has been kind of isolated for this whole time, and she even thinks that that's part of the reason why. Well, Motoyasu is, and the other heroes. Because frankly, if the other heroes got a good word in for Naofumi, then, well, it wouldn't have been this way. He wouldn't be struggling at all. Yes, they found that sweet spot where it's like they're not struggling much at all anymore, but beforehand, it could have made a lot of things easier. So she kind of ignores them, or ignores him, as she begins to look toward the Dragon Hourglass, looking to see that there are 24 hours left. Naofumi sees this as well and begins to say that they should prepare a couple things before they actually have to fight the wave. So Naofumi and Raphtalia bid them all for farewell, frankly not really caring about whatever they're doing, and they begin to set up for the wave, learning that Loot Village basically is not going to be protected by any means. Naofumi even brings this up, and Raphtalia agrees that they should think about protecting it. So when the wave begins, that's exactly where they start. They start at Loot Village, and they begin protecting Loot Village. After protecting the entirety of Loot Village from monsters that we basically are like hornets and skeletons and big zombie monsters, after defeating tons and tons and tons of those, they see that, well, it seems like the wave is slowly but surely coming to an end, seeing that everything actually cleaned up relatively nicely, as if it was kind of easy in a way. Naofumi is happy that it was this easy, but he doubts that everything will stay this easy forever at least. So after the wave is finished, he begins to hear of this so-called state dinner. Naofumi believes that they shouldn't actually go to that. Frankly, there's very few foods that both him and Venom like, but you know, maybe there is variety. And Venom even says that he wants it. He wants to go see what food is there.
Yes, Venom want food. Now that would be delicious. And if the food is no longer good, then I will bite their heads off.
You know you can't do that. You can't just bite everybody's head off.
Yes, but not unless they're bad people.
Damn. I really put myself in that corner, huh? Naofumi and Raphtalia, and then obviously Venom, because he's kind of their symbiote, head off to the kingdom once again and meet with the king and everybody else to actually have a state dinner. But just as they're having a decent time, and Naofumi is trying new foods that they've actually never had in their lives, it seems like there's some word spreading around that Raphtalia is a slave. But the thing is, she doesn't have a slave crest. But even with that said, Mine tells Motoyasu that Naofumi must be manipulating her in some way. That especially the way she acted toward Motoyasu, no female would even act like that toward him. Why would they? He's the spear hero. So Naofumi watches as Motoyasu approaches him and throws a glove on the ground, telling him that he wants a duel. Naofumi shakes his head and says that is not a good idea, that he'd rather not duel Motoyasu, and, well, Mine chimes in and says of course he wouldn't because Motoyasu is so great. Naofumi just is completely confused and doesn't even want to hear this, and says that if he really wants to duel, then why not fight Raphtalia? And, well, Mine immediately brings up that, oh, no wonder you would sick a slave on Motoyasu. But Naofumi kind of smiles at this and says that she is no slave. She has no slave crest, and it's not like she's being controlled. In which Raphtalia agrees and says that she's not being controlled. It's all on her own free will. But they don't believe it, and he refused to fight Raphtalia, even though Raphtalia actually says that she would fight him. Naofumi then decides that he'll finally fight him, and it's kind of ridiculous, but he will do such a thing. So they all head out to the duel arena, and when they begin dueling, let's just say everybody looks in awe when Naofumi transforms into his Venom symbiote or Venom form. He begins to transform and his body begins to contort and change, but this time it's minimal. It seems like his armor or his body is changing into a more armor state, as if, well, now he's changing into more of a humanoid figure. Venom said he figured out that he can actually do this and not look all bulky and stuff, and frankly this is better. Form-fitting to Naofumi's armor that he currently has on, and it makes him look like a soldier. And Naofumi says that this is a better look in his opinion, less alien.
What does that mean? Aliens don't look good? That's just me, Naofumi.
No, that's not what I mean at all. I mean, aliens, a little scary. This looks cooler, Naofumi then kind of backpedals in terms of the comments and Venom is still mad about it. But everybody watches in awe as this symbiote, what the hell, is just surrounding Naofumi? What the heck is he? He's a monster, a demon, a devil? This is exactly what happens. You trade a shield or the devil of the shield for another demon itself. Naofumi hears them all chattering about this, but he doesn't really care. He says that the duel was basically requested by Motoyasu, so if he doesn't want to fight, he doesn't have to fight. But at the end of the day, that means he'll lose the duel, and they'll have to make sure to set Raphtalia free. Motoyasu says that no matter what, he'll fight. But as he looks toward Naofumi and sees his level, they're all shocked. How the hell is he that strong? What kind of training did he do? Naofumi doesn't say a word as he begins to reveal weaponry. A shield that is about half the size of his body, that is very similar to that Iron Man shield from Infinity War. And also a long axe. He begins to strike Motoyasu as he blocks every single attack from the spear, seeing that the level of his shield is going up at a pretty fast rate, especially because something as strong as the legendary spear is hitting it. He begins to actually use Motoyasu for his own gain, upgrading his shield more and more as he gains skill after skill. This is actually very convenient. Naofumi even remarks at this, saying that Motoyasu is the best thing to happen to Naofumi so far, in which he's really confused to hear. But obviously, Naofumi has no interest in actually explaining it to him, as he slices toward Motoyasu, slicing his armor more or less completely off. But as Motoyasu tries to close the distance and strike him with his spear, he covers him in this odd black goo, surrounding him, and it solidifies into a giant ball. It's as if it's a symbiote shield prison. He then shows that spikes begin to appear around Motoyasu, and he tells Motoyasu that it's time to yield, or else. And obviously Motoyasu is terrified. You're gonna kill me? Are you crazy? This is a duel. Yes, a duel to the death. You wanted this duel. You decided this, Mr. Whatever, Motoyasu.
Yes, and you wanted to die, correct?
Naofumi begins to close in the spikes as Motoyasu begins to panic and say that he gives up. Mine begins to say that you can't give up, but Motoyasu says that he was going to kill him, but Naofumi even admits that it was just a threat. He was not going to kill him. What is he, crazy? I mean, sort of, but that's beyond the point. Even with that said though, Motoyasu feels that he just got cheated, but that's just not the case. When you say you yield, and frankly, Naofumi wasn't going to kill him, so it's not like it's some against the rules or something, it's a duel. So everything goes about according to plan. He gets Raphtalia back, and everything is set in stone. Naofumi is annoyed by the kingdom and decides to leave with Raphtalia toward Loot Village once again. After a couple days at staying at Loot Village, there is some news though. As the knights and a bunch of people begin to approach, it seems like they have an idea to more or less take over Loot Village. Motoyasu is there with Mine, saying that this is now under the rule of Motoyasu, the spear hero. But Naofumi obviously disagrees, saying that just will not be okay. He's not going to just let them take over Loot Village. This isn't their village. It's not Naofumi's either. But the people there even say that the spear hero wasn't there to save them when they needed him, and that Naofumi was there protecting with his companion Raphtalia. And, well, Naofumi agrees, saying that these people deserve to have their own place, their own little safe haven, and that's what they're going to have, or else. And Mine says that there is no arguing with this, but as she says this, a shadow appears. This shadow begins to hand her something, and Mine gets mad. Knowing that Motoyasu is still injured from the fight, frankly in both ego and also wounds, she decides not to actually protest anymore, telling them that he won't get away with this next time and that they will get what they want eventually. Mine and all the rest of the knights, including Motoyasu, then leave. But Naofumi is worried, the fact that they might come back when Naofumi isn't there, so he decides to approach the leader of the entire Loot Village and begins to explain to him something that they can do. Naofumi, now that he's a way higher level, he can actually broaden his symbiote's connection, connecting it with more and more people. But this way, if he leaves it out of the party, the symbiote can actually more or less speak for the person and increase the hive minds more or less spanned over this world. So he decides to talk with the village leader about spreading or giving him that symbiote, in which he doesn't know what to say really. He's not so sure, he's kind of scared of this, but he promises that Venom will not hurt him at all. It actually will give him some hunger in terms of like, wanting to eat things, certain things, but he'll give him a list of foods he can eat, obviously instead of humans. He asks what does he mean by humans, but Naofumi explains that normally a Venom symbiote would actually eat a human, but in this case there are various other foods that he can eat instead of that. In which it's good to hear. He's happy. He doesn't want to eat humans by any means, but this would be a way for them to more or less actually survive and not worry about these people that are trying to get them, and he'll be able to protect himself from Motoyasu and everybody else. And this is a great thing to hear. Naofumi then offers it once again, and the village leader of Loot decides to take the offer, becoming basically this vessel for another symbiote, and allowing Venom to take over, at least momentarily, as he gives him back free reign once again. He explains that he'll need to learn how to control this power, and he'll be quote-unquote part of his party, but not really. He'll be kind of just connected with him, so if they ever need help and it's really something he cannot handle himself, he can reach out through Venom himself. And they all thank them for the act of trying to protect them, and Naofumi nods. But the idea of getting more party members, that is definitely going to be needed. He has a couple more symbiote quote-unquote spots to do, but Venom does remind him that if they overload it too much, that it might actually become hurtful more than helpful, in which Naofumi agrees, saying that only one more should be added for now until they get a way higher level. In which Venom says that is a good rule of thumb. You want to leave a couple open so that they have some breathing room of some sorts. But after that, they don't really know what to do in terms of party members, so they decide to head off and begin searching for various other villages. During this searching process though, they do come across this person, a person that is an odd trader. A rich trader begins to ask about if they can somehow guide him to a certain place and protect him. In which Naofumi says that he doesn't really have a way to get there fast, other than, well, that way, as he looks at Raphtalia, in which the trader asks what is he talking about, and since everyone has already seen it, he doesn't really care that he's going to show the trainer. Showing the trainer a bigger version of the symbiote, which is the normal base version, not like the military-esque or armament version that he has. He actually shows that one and says that he can get them to their destination really, really quickly by picking them up and jumping over. In which that's actually how they're going to be traveling from here on out, especially without a monster to do so, and there's really no need for a monster to be added to the party, especially with the whole symbiote thing. Naofumi isn't so sure if it's a great idea, but maybe in the future it will be. So he decides to pick up the trader, jumping off and basically arriving at that place almost immediately, leaving Raphtalia in the dust, at least for now, as she continues to walk. As they basically conversate, he begins to show Naofumi various things as Venom begins to store it within him, giving him this gold little bar that would allow him to travel to different villages without a toll by any means, and various other tactics and trading things as well, saying that he can actually make a decent amount of money if he just sticks with the trader. And he says sure, and he'll run some errands for him and for obviously some cash. He says that he'll have to be going now as he jumps off toward, Raphtalia to pick her up. As he arrives though, it seems that a group of bandits begin to attack Raphtalia, but during this, Naofumi just watches as Raphtalia slices through them even without her Venom symbiote. But just as she wants to finish them off, she transforms into her Venom-like form, killing all of them immediately and eating their bodies. And this actually does give her a giant boost in experience, and she kind of laughs and says that these people were bad. And Venom even agrees, being that he is connected to her. He begins to explain that they are bad.
Yes, these people, they were going to hurt Raphtalia, so I ate them.
Yeah, that's a fair enough reason, I guess, huh? He looks toward Raphtalia's level, and unluckily enough, she was kind of at level 38, so she's now at level 40, but she obviously couldn't go past level 40. Naofumi does say that they need to give her that class upgrade as soon as possible. in which Venom actually brings something up, saying that there are other dragon hourglasses. And he's confused. How do you even know about that?
I heard from the grapevine, or just people talking too loudly.
I see. That does make sense. Naofumi begins to ask where that would be, and he says Shield Freedom, and it's actually pretty close to here, and it would be a couple leaps, and frankly, they'd be there in no time. So Naofumi decides that he might as well do that as well. But just as they're about to do so, he actually gets a mission request from the trader, so he decides that maybe he should do that first. And this request is to take some herbicide to a nearby village. When he arrives at that said village, he begins searching around, seeing monster after monster or plant monster after monster with Raphtalia. They see so many that they're concerned about the villagers. They head up to see that the villagers are all in a panic and a sprawl. They're terrified of these plant monsters and they begin to explain that the spear hero Motoyasu grabbed this seed and tried to end their local famine, and then this happened. It sprouted and everything went crazy. And Naofumi says that he's not really that surprised about it. No offense to them, well, Motoyasu is not the smartest person in the world. And they're confused. He knew something like this would happen? Naofumi shrugs and says that not this specifically, but something like it. He begins to ask Venom if it's possible for them to cure this monster, and Venom does respond.
Yes, it should be possible. But let's be honest, it's not going to be the easiest thing. Letting the big plant monster eat them won't be the worst idea in the world.
We can't let the plant do that. We can't just let the plant eat them.
Yes, but it might want human head.
Venom, I'm not even gonna say how wrong that sounds in so many different ways. Can we cure them or not? Can we, beat the plants?
Yes, we can. Let's just go fight the big plant monsters now.
Naofumi and Raphtalia head down to where the main source of the plants are, and Venom begins to tell Naofumi to basically throw a piece of himself, or piece of Venom, toward the plant monster with the herbicide within it. The Venom symbiote begins to spread out between the roots of the monster, and it begins to more or less just combine the herbicide within it. The more and more it spreads, the faster the monster begins to deplete, eventually leading to the monster completely subsiding entirely, and the roots and all the plant entirely is gone from existence. Now, Fumi, only one part of it does kind of suck, because frankly he can't supply them with any food. But Venom does say that he has some leftover seeds somewhere in his body.
Let's see, where is it? Over here? No. Over here?
What's taking so long, dude? It's like an inventory, right?
You don't understand. I try to organize these things, but you give me so much stuff to organize.
Okay, I'm sorry. Venom and Naofumi and also Raphtalia head up to the village as they find the seeds. They give them some special seeds that aren't, cursed, and they give them and tell them that the plant is all handled, but to be careful, that these seeds are actually pretty beneficial, but if they more or less overdo it and try to do some magic on it, it could turn into the same thing. But even with that said, these seeds are basically just normal seeds, just slightly enhanced. They thank Raphtalia and Naofumi so much, thanking them for helping them and blah blah blah. And Naofumi gets repaid with a little bit of money and some other items. And they just leave. They think it's over and basically done with, so he picks up Raphtalia and begins heading off to the next area. This next place, or the next mission, is to actually deliver merchandise to this hot springs of some sorts, in which Venom loves hot springs. Venom is super to the idea of trying to relax, and they go into the water, but Venom does feel that it is a little too hot.
It's hot! Get me out of here!
Dude, you'll be fine. Trust me, everything's fine. It's not like it's fire.
But still! I know I'm resistant, but still!
Oh my god, you're such a baby.
I'm not a baby. I'm a parasite. Wait, no, I'm not a parasite.
You just slipped up and called yourself a parasite. Raphtalia begins to laugh as well, and Venom is pretty mad about the revelation, calling himself a symbiote once again, an alien symbiote, not a parasite. But all of that just goes pretty well. Frankly, they just drop off the merchandise, have a decent night just hanging out, especially resting after the couple arduous journeys they've had so far. And after some more time, they do hear news of another village. This other village is actually fallen under some pretty heavy sickness. It seems like they're actually sick because of a decaying monster. So Naofumi and Raphtalia head over to that village, introducing themselves and talking to everybody and giving them some basic medicines that Venom has stored within him, and also some that he's crafted within the inventory. And he gives them the medicines as they thank them, but there's another overlying problem, and that's the giant monster or a dragon that is decaying above them. And that does make sense. So Naofumi grabs Raphtalia and they jump up there in complete sequence. They just want to more or less just get rid of it. So Venom just throws himself on it and begins to consume it. But as he does this, the dragon comes to life. Venom is forced to back off toward Naofumi once again, and they begin to transform into their obviously Agent Venom-esque military state, and they tell Raphtalia to do the same. She does the same, and they're ready for a fight. They begin fighting this dragon, and it seems like it's really not crazy hard, but that's until, well, Venom gets blasted with fire. Immediately, he tries to put up his shield, but the shield begins to degrade slowly but surely. But as he's covering himself, the shield's experience points begins to skyrocket. The fire is actually making them slowly but surely more resistant. But if the fire keeps going on, it's gonna get bad, real bad. He might die before he actually creates a perfect resistance to fire. Luckily, Raphtalia is there, slicing at the dragon with her sword in her own symbiote state, slicing part of its neck almost clean off. The zombie dragon squeals in pain and begins to back up slightly as Raphtalia stabs it in the stomach. Now back to more or less full health, Naofumi looks at it and throws a sword and multiple swords, puncturing the dragon one by one, putting multiple blades within that said dragon. And he reaches his hand out and calls upon the swords to actually spike up.
Spiky sword!
Immediately the swords begin to expand, as if spikes begin to arise out of the blades, and it begins to just porcupine in a way inside the dragon, and it begins to shred the dragon to pieces. Naofumi watches as the dragon more or less just dies and gets obliterated, and Raphtalia finds something within the dragon. It seems there's this small shard, this odd dragon shard. Just as she's talking about it, it's just enveloped in her skin, basically by the symbiote, and it just remains back into Naofumi's inventory.
Now this is interesting. I'm not so sure what this is, but I'm gonna have to do some research. Don't worry about it. I got it, buddy.
Alright, I mean, sounds good to me. But we could assume that is, quote-unquote, maybe the dragon's soul? Maybe? Anger? He would have to be mad over something, right? I mean, what and who killed it? They assume that they'll know if the villagers tell them, so they go down and they ask the villagers. They do say before he jumped off and basically went to go handle it, they were going to tell him that Ren actually defeated the dragon but left the body there. Oh, that does make sense. These heroes are kind of stupid, huh? Raphtalia nods rapidly and begins to say that they really have no idea how this world even works. And also, they kind of don't take into the fact that these things affect people. In which Naofumi agrees. Even Venom is kind of confused at why they have zero common sense. Like, this isn't a video game of some sorts, this is real life. And it's weird coming from him, because he's an alien, a symbiote, and it's like he's some weird thing that would never even exist in quote-unquote a regular world. But even with that said, the villagers thank them and basically say that they're the Venom or the symbiote saviors or something like that. And they thank them, but they say not to call them that. That just sounds weird. Unless you want to call us the parasite saviors. That sounds good.
Don't you dare call us the parasite saviors. We are not parasites.
Naofumi starts laughing with Raphtalia as they leave and basically give their goodbyes. Now that that's over and done with though, they do want to head to Shield Freedom. Frankly, the idea behind it is to just go and get their class upgrade and then come back. So that's exactly what they do. They cross the border to Shield Freedom not too long after. The travel is pretty quick, especially with Naofumi jumping around, and even Raphtalia is extremely fast, even if Naofumi doesn't carry her. So they get to Shield Freedom relatively quickly and just explain to the nobleman there that they are one of the heroes. And they're confused. One of the heroes? But I've never seen a hero like you. He even shows them his Venom form, and they're really shocked, thinking that maybe he's some monster. They ask him if he's a beast man or a demi-human, and Raphtalia confirms that they're not. And Raphtalia, a demi-human herself, is actually greeted with open arms, and they say that, wow, like they didn't know that a demi-human would be with one of the heroes, especially after all the heroes got summoned to Melremark. And Naofumi's confused. Why would a hero not have a demi-human? Which Naofumi is kind of clueless about this, but demi-humans are kind of hated in Melremark, which is explained. Naofumi doesn't like the idea of this, especially people like Raphtalia, her kind. They're really nice, so why would they hate them? And they do say that's why she was most likely enslaved. And Naofumi just connects the dots. Yes, he's a scientist, but he is kind of dull in terms of personal relations, so he's actually shocked that he didn't come to this conclusion sooner. But even with that said, he begins speaking with them about getting Raphtalia a class upgrade, in which they're totally fine with. So they give her that class upgrade, and it seems like she can choose between two things. Actually, more like something that she would choose no matter what, and that would be an upgrade to the symbiote. It seems like now the symbiote is like her own type of symbiote. Even Venom realizes this, saying that the class upgrade has kind of separated them. His consciousness is still within Raphtalia, but it feels as if the connection is slightly weaker and she's more independent. Naofumi does like this idea and asks her what is that all about, and she explains that it's a strengthen to her own symbiote. As she transforms, she looks a lot different. She actually looks like herself, but just with hybrid symbiote-like factors. She's not the same color as Naofumi, or like that black color with the scary eyes. It's actually different. The symbiote is a different shade, actually a whiter shade of color, more like gray, and her eyes are the same as her eye color, leaving some, well, relative features like her ears and her tail with different colors as well. And it's as if the symbiote bonded a lot stronger to her and her personality and her physical traits, making the bond, actually the strength of it, be a higher multiplier than ever before, making her extremely strong. Now that she can even gain more and more levels, who says that she won't be extremely powerful based upon this? Even at level 40, she's more or less has the stats of someone probably at a level 60 to 70. Now this is something great. But just as they go to leave, the noblemen at Shield Freedom begin to question and ask if they can help with the wave there, in which they're confused. Wave there? They begin to explain everything. Waves happen all around the world, and they weren't supposed to be summoned all together. And Naofumi kind of cuts him off and says that there's no reason to explain anymore. They'll stay here, defend for the wave at Shield Freedom, and they ask what's the other closest country. They talk about Siltvelt. Siltvelt is also another close country, and he says that they'll protect both of them. He won't be able to protect the other ones, but he should be able to protect both. And he asks if they have good relations with Siltvelt, in which they really don't. They explain that they have a lot of conflict of interest, and Naofumi decides that he's going to go speak with them and would like them to somewhat settle their differences sooner rather than later, in which they say anything for a hero, and they'll try their best to do just that. So Naofumi heads over to Siltvelt, speaking to the nobleman over there, and also explaining the entire situation, who he is, how he's the symbiote hero, and who Raphtalia is, in which they greet her in with open arms, and they are saddened to hear that the shield hero won't be summoned, but this person has such good traits like the shield hero, basically taking in a demi-human and protecting the demi-humans as well. It feels like he's the shield hero as well. He transforms into his military-like form and shows a giant shield, and says that he might not be the shield hero, but he can definitely make one. And he transforms back, and they're all surprised to see this, but they're happy. They ask what he's doing there, and he basically explains that he wants to protect both Siltvelt and Shield Freedom, but his worry is the connection between both of them. Supposedly they're not on the best terms. They say that is true, but if they do want to interact for the waves and make sure that everything is safe, they'll drop the barriers and they won't basically argue about it. and they'll figure out their political issues later because basically the safety of the people is more important. Naofumi nods and says that's a good mindset, that they should go based off of that all the time. In which they agree. They apologize for the conflicts, and he says that it's fine, and they begin to wait for the wave to begin. He begins to get reinforcements from Siltveld, from Schildfrieden, items from both countries, and they begin to get ready for both waves. But when the wave begins, it's relatively easy. Naofumi and Raphtalia handle both of the waves, and it seems like they have similar monsters, just with slight differences. They are soul eaters, but they work a little bit differently, but the result is still the same. Naofumi and Raphtalia, even if they were split up, would have been able to defend against this and defeat all of it, slaying the wave as it begins to fade in both of the countries. But when they look toward Melromark about 2 hours later, they see that the wave is still going on over there. They ask if it'll be okay if they left, and they say it's of course it is, they can leave whenever they want, and since the wave is over, they won't be needed for a little bit, and they'll basically reward them as soon as possible. Naofumi thanks them, and so does Raphtalia, as they jump off toward the wave. When Naofumi arrives though, it's something that he did not want to see. The other heroes on the ground, beaten and battered, some with missing limbs and some extremely hurt. Naofumi realizes that this isn't good. There's a woman that stands above them, mocking them, saying that they weren't even real heroes, not strong enough, bickering, and basically not even protecting their own world, that they should just all die here, and frankly, it would be better for all of them. Glass, who came hours earlier, more or less demolished and dismantled the other heroes and left them extremely wounded. Motoyasu missing part of his hand, or basically a whole hand, and Itsuki missing one of his arms. They're down for the count. Ren is the only one slightly standing, but frankly he has nothing left. He's just running on fumes. Naofumi and Raphtalia come crashing in, and as Glass goes to blast Ren, he blocks her blast with a giant shield made of, well, the Symbiote. And then Glass realizes who this is. There's the fourth hero. Now, I really apologize I have to do this, but I had to choose between my world and yours. And after meeting the other three, I'll just assume you're just like them. Naofumi and Raphtalia stand their ground, ready for a fight. What will happen to the other heroes? What will happen to their injuries? Will Naofumi be able to stand up to this Raven invader? Will he be able to defeat Glass and set everything correct? Even if he does, will that truly jeopardize everything? Will them, the other heroes being extremely hurt like this, jeopardize their goals? Well, you'll have to find out on the finale of What If Naofumi Was the Legendary Symbiote Hero. If you enjoyed this part, make sure to leave a like, sub, comment down below any suggestions. As y'all could tell, I didn't have an intro. I decided to get rid of the intro. It might sound weird. It's more of like an analytical thing that I researched and found a video on. So I decided to get rid of the intro, get right into the nitty gritty, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's about it. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Last we left off, Naofumi and Raphtalia have finally arrived. Arrived right in front of Glass. Glass herself, a woman with a black kimono, and 2 dual war fans. The only problem is the other 3 heroes are practically down for the count, hurting extremely bad. One of them missing a limb in terms of Motoyasu, missing one of his arms. Now this is definitely a problem. Naofumi isn't sure if he'll be strong enough to beat these people, or beat Glass, especially after seeing the other heroes get battered. But his worries are put away relatively quickly when the fight begins. Yo, what is good everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me. And I'm back. I'm back with What If Naofumi Was the Legendary Symbiote Hero. And I'm not going to waste much more of your time, and we're just going to get right into the what if. Let's get it. The fight begins between Glass and Naofumi. He tells Raphtalia to stay back at least for now. As he begins to fight her, he sees that he overwhelms her by a good margin. Not because of his raw strength, but more because of his technique. At this point, Naofumi has an idea of how to fight these type of people, and he can tell that Glass, for one, isn't the best of fighters, and he's also extremely resistant. Naofumi just closes the distance, landing crucial blows, and also slicing at Glass whenever he gets the chance. It feels like every blow he's doing is counteracting Glass itself, and Venom even brings this up, saying that Glass is actually weak to them. It seems that Glass has this outer aura about her, something about SP, and they seem to actually sap it away, slowly but surely, at least passively. And Naofumi knew nothing about this, but especially with the convenience of Glass needing this SP of some sorts, the fight is pretty lopsided. Naofumi slashes more and more, trying to actually kill Glass, eventually leading to Raphtalia appearing behind Glass in her own Venom form as well, with an extended sword, slicing at her neck, landing a clean slice. And that is the death of Glass. Glass is now dead as Naofumi watches on. Venom even remarks that Raphtalia has gotten strong in her own right, and frankly she saw an opening they didn't, and she took it. Wow, that was definitely interesting. They say that as her head begins to bounce around and fall off the Dutchman's ship. The other three heroes are shocked, but Raphtalia and Naofumi immediately pick them up and jump them away to safety. Actually, more or less so that they can get healed and basically not die on them. Luckily, they get the heroes back into the Melromar Kingdom quick enough, but just as they're getting everyone healed, they're called back to the king. The king begins to basically blame Naofumi, saying that if he was there sooner, this wouldn't have happened. But Naofumi says he was handling other waves in other countries, something that they didn't even tell them. The king begins to remark that they summoned them, and that they do not care about these other countries. Naofumi shakes his head. You guys sound horrible. Actually horrible. It makes no sense to me. Frankly, you'd be better dead. Honestly. The king then remarks what is he going to do. He won't kill one of the, people at the top. Naofumi appears in front of him with a blade at his neck. Don't test me, because I will. I don't care. Not one bit. Just as Naofumi is remarking this to the king though, someone approaches in and begs him not to kill her father. He retracts the blade and turns to see Melty. Being the first time that Naofumi actually sees this young girl, he doesn't actually know who she is. But she explains that she is the heir apparent to the throne and promises to have everything handled, and that they know, or that she knows and is telling everybody else, that they are not the criminals here. And Naofumi says he doesn't even care. He doesn't care about them or Melromark even thinking that, and that he'll be heading off basically to the other countries already. Raphtalia agrees and they begin to walk out, but Melty tries to call out to them, but the king tells her to stop. After a little bit of traveling, really not that far, we're talking just the distance of Loot Village, Melty comes running after them with guards in hand as well, basically begging them to stay, saying that they need their help and that it's obvious that the other heroes, they're damaged, battered, and frankly, they're not going to stand a chance in these next waves. And Naofumi says that it's not his problem, that they'll be strong enough eventually to handle these waves on their own, and if they decide to die or kick the buckets, then they decide to kick the bucket. It's not his fault. Melty says she understands that, but just as she's saying this, a blade comes hurling at her, but Naofumi is able to block it and immediately break it. Now, this I wasn't expecting. But at the end of the day, I might not like royalty, but she is a little girl, and you're not gonna kill her. Naofumi turns immediately, and Venom begins to threaten all of them.
Time to die!
Naofumi charges at all of them and begins beating them down senseless, and Raphtalia kills all of them as well. Melty is shocked to see this, but he says that he apologizes. He didn't want her to see all of the death and destruction, but at the end of the day, this is life, and that they wanted her to be assassinated for a reason, so they need to get her out of here. So he picks her up, changing into his larger Venom form, and so does Raphtalia, and they jump off immediately, heading towards Shield Frieden, and when they arrive, they're actually shocked to see the Princess of Melremark. But he explains very quickly that the only reason why he brought them here, or brought her here, is because they tried to assassinate her, and he didn't want to leave her there just to die. They all agree and say that's completely fine, and that they'll reach out to the Queen and have her meet Melty here. Just as they begin to say this, a shadow appears and pleads, based on the Queen's sentiments, for Naofumi to meet with the Queen, in which Naofumi doesn't really have a problem with this, but says that Melty needs to be okay, and they decide that they'll take Melty along so that she will be with the Queen the entire time. So this journey eventually happens. Wherever the Queen is currently, being in another country, they head over really quickly. They head over and they begin speaking with the Queen, and the Queen talks about various things. Three Heroes Church, her husband, and also the other daughter, and various other things that are going on, and also the fact that the other heroes are basically nothing now. That they basically got destroyed by that glass girl, and Naofumi had to handle it on his own and kill her. Naofumi says that he knows he had to do what he had to do, but frankly, they are becoming a crutch, and that they need to survive so that the waves don't get harder. That he's heard about all of that before from the grapevine, and also, Venom learning about it throughout the times of travel, and she nods, saying that they do need to get stronger. She's not sure how, but they do. Venom then brings something up.
You know, they could just become one of us. It'd be pretty simple that way.
Yeah, I know that, but I don't even think that's how that works. Since that you're kind of my weapon in a way, I'm pretty sure you can't do that. It wouldn't work. It would cancel out all the leveling capabilities.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Aren't you like some genius with like a photographic Never mind. That doesn't matter. He begins to speak back with the Queen, and she asks about Venom. As she asks about him, he shows up in a head form to the right of Naofumi and begins to speak as well to the Queen. They talk for a bit, and Naofumi decides that he will handle the Three Heroes Church and see what he can do. Raphtalia says that she wants to actually handle this other thing. She's heard about it from Venom and her own symbiote now, and that she wants to go handle this little kingdom and handle the person that enslaved her and her people. In which Naofumi is completely for, telling her to be careful and that to use the hive mind of Venom to actually reach back and forth and communicate properly. Naofumi can handle the Three Heroes Church on his own, in which the Queen questions and asks if that's really a good idea, but Naofumi says if he gets the jump on them, it really won't matter. They're not prepared, and they don't know that Naofumi already knows this is going to occur. Naofumi is then sent off with one of the shadows to be guided to the area, at least where the Pope is currently, and Raphtalia heads off on her own to handle some, you could call it, business. She's actually going to pay a visit to Rabier, and let's just say it's gonna be a messy one. But back with Naofumi, Naofumi is currently approaching really fast on where the church and the Pope is. When they arrive, they see that there are tons and tons of followers getting ready, and Naofumi remarks that he can assume that the followers are going to be his power source, in which Venom confirms, saying that that is definitely the case, and whatever he has planned, it's going to be powerful if he's using that many people. Naofumi then asks Venom, what do you think the best idea is? Go after the followers, kill all of them, or do we kill the Pope?
You see, we want to limit casualties, right? Because we're good guys. Well, you know, sort of good guys. But still, lethal protector stuff, you know?
Yeah, you're right. I think Pope is probably a good idea. They haven't really done anything wrong. They're just following him blindly. So, Pope, hopefully we can catch them before they actually power up whatever. Naofumi nods and begins to head off. He begins to try to stealth his way through, eventually getting to exactly where the Pope is, seeing that the weapon is actually being charged currently, and they're speaking about their next move. They're speaking about isolating Ren and Itsuki and hoping to more or less destroy and kill them. But just as they're talking about this, Naofumi stretches out his tendril like body and grabs the Pope, pulling him in and jumping him away immediately. The Pope screams that for help, but now he's too far away. The followers that he has are too far away in terms of radius to give him power, and he doesn't have the weapon. He basically is enveloped in this venom, or obviously the symbiote, and he's covered entirely as if he was in a prison, very similar to his venom-like shield prison. After that, he takes him immediately to the Queen, telling her exactly what was going on, and the Pope is immediately thrown into prison. And luckily they didn't have to do any, lethal protector stuff and kill somebody. But, the Pope is then put away, and then all the followers are also put away relatively quickly. But obviously Naofumi makes it clear. Look, your husband, whatever, the king, the other princess, they're going to make this extremely hard. They could easily get them out. They cannot be under the same title as you now. They've done too much, way too much treason. This is ridiculous. They have to either be put away, stripped of their title, or something. I hope you understand that. Venom comes out as well and says that he agrees.
Yes, they're a bunch of snacks. I should eat them.
No, you can't eat them. Plus never mind. Naofumi then just tells the Queen that they need to put them away, at least for now, until they can repent for their sins. And the Queen agrees, and says that she's actually at her last visit, and begins to head off back toward the kingdom with a ton of her army. Luckily, everything kind of went relatively smooth, and basically the Three Heroes Church was shut down relatively quickly. Naofumi then begins to head off, going to meet Raphtalia, and when he arrives, he actually sees her dragging out Rabier. Seeing him completely battered, and Naofumi asks if she really wants to kill him, and Venom appears and says that's some lethal protector stuff right there. But Naofumi questions if she really wants to do so, and she says that she really does, slicing his head off as she kills him entirely. Naofumi nods and says that is a choice that you are going to have to live with. The death and killing someone is of course something that will follow you forever, but if you truly believe that it was needed, then it was needed. Raphtalia says that this one was. She just worries the one with Glass wasn't. She worries that maybe, just maybe, they could have talked it out a little more, but with the instance and what was going on, she felt that needed to be done. Naofumi says that he would have done the same thing. Given the opening, he would have taken the life of her as well, especially after all the carnage she caused. There's no basically hate on that regard. So Naofumi leaves with Raphtalia, and actually during their journey back, they're stopped by a man. This man asks them to come in, and he wants to speak with them. It's actually Van Richnot, a nobleman there, and he's heard about Naofumi and Raphtalia, and asks about everything going on, about his people, and various other things like that, in which they explain that everyone is fine, and that they've been protecting Shield Frieden and Siltvelt to their best of their capabilities, and the damage has been very minimal, in which he's extremely happy to hear. He wants to hear that his home is completely safe and all of that. And Naofumi says that he's been trying his best. Unfortunately, a lot of things have to be done in terms of, well, you could call it lethal protector stuff according to Venom, in which Naofumi smiles and laughs, and Venom appears and starts laughing as well. And he says that unfortunately that killing is one of the things that needs to be done. He wants to not resort to it, but frankly, a lot of the things in terms of Melremark has forced his hand. And, well, Van Richnot doesn't blame him, saying that he's not big on killing, but he agrees that sometimes you are pushed to that edge, and you have to do what you must do. He nods, and Naofumi begins to leave, and gets actually a little bit of money and some other stuff as a parting gift. They head out, and Venom gets fed some food, aka both of them kind of get fed some food, and so does Raphtalia. They arrive back at the Melremark Kingdom, in which the Queen has basically arrived before them. Malty, or Mine, begins to basically shout, telling her mother that demon right there is the reason why the Three Heroes Church is basically in jail, and that he falsely accused them, blah blah blah, and a bunch of bull malarkey as we know. And the queen says that actually the Three Heroes Church is bad, and frankly that they were colluding with them, so they will actually have punishment as well. In which Malty says that just can't be the case. They're not bad. How would they be bad? But the queen isn't having it, telling the guards to take away the king and Malty. She then tells Naofumi to not worry about some other things, basically to have her handle all of this, and she will call to them once she can. And that basically to go out, train, do whatever you gotta do, and they are currently helping recover the other heroes in terms of all the healing process and getting ready for the next time they need to fight. But with a loss of limb on one of them and a couple really bad injuries, it might be a little bit before they're ready, which could affect them in this next couple weeks. But one thing would arise relatively quickly, and that is the queen's actually offer to go to the Kalmyra Archipelago events. This is something insane for Naofumi, especially with Raphtalia. Their levels have been skyrocketing like crazy. Naofumi at an almost level of 80 already, and Raphtalia peaking at a level of 70. It's really have been extremely fruitful, but even without the archipelago bonus in terms of experience, Raphtalia, to be fair, was kind of on her own for a little bit, so she did train on her own, so that probably benefited her a little bit. But even with that said, the archipelago event will be extremely beneficial. So Raphtalia Naofumi leaves with everybody else, seeing that the other heroes are in better shape now. And he asks Venom if there's any way that they could heal them a little bit, and Venom really says no, especially with the one with no arm or one of the arms gone. It just wouldn't work. And they can try, but the symbiote thing just won't work as well with Raphtalia, and it's like the same thing. So Naofumi agrees to just leave it as is, and as he looks for a room, he sees that all of them are actually covered, and he can't go in any of them, which is kind of annoying, but Naofumi just goes to a shared bunk. When he arrives in that place, he sees Lark and Therese. This interaction is interesting, because Venom immediately has suspicion on who these people are. Naofumi agrees, and Raphtalia nudges toward him in agreement as well, because these people, they seem to have a hatred toward Naofumi. Venom can kind of make a conclusion. If you look at their weapons and analyze the stuff that they have, they're no normal adventurers. He's heard about these vassal weapon heroes, but these are not them. They're not part of this world, at least not to his knowledge. Naofumi doesn't say a word, but just plays along as if nothing's wrong. But even Lark and Therese, are toned down from their normal selves. In canon, maybe Therese was a little bit more perky and happy, and Lark was the same way more or less, but that's not the case here. Lark is a little bit more serious and more monotone, and Therese is kind of happy, but you can tell that she's more faking it than anything. Them killing Glass, if that's really their partner, it must have taken a toll on them. They leave eventually, and Naofumi and Raphtalia begin their training, and they see Lark and Therese doing the same, but refusing to actually even go near Naofumi and Raphtalia. After a couple days, they decide that they're going to take a break. Since they have gotten extreme amounts of XP and levels, they're going to go take a small break and then just chill on the beach. But during this time, while they're swimming, because obviously Venom would love to, hit the water a little bit, surf's up, dude. So he basically goes and swims down with Naofumi, and what they see is something odd. Odd temple? No, they're not so sure. It's actually an area with another dragon hourglass. Now this dragon hourglass says that there's going to be a wave in 48 hours. This is definitely alarming, and he immediately goes to tell the queen, in which she gets them ships and stuff like that. Once everything is all set and ready, the wave is close to beginning. This is the plan. Naofumi and the other heroes will handle the giant monster, and then obviously everything else will be handled by the other people there. Before this, he did talk to the other heroes. They weren't really too keen on talking to Naofumi, and Naofumi doesn't really care very much. But frankly, he can't really say a word about it, because at the end of the day, he's been working with the other countries, and they were beaten and battered. So of course they're mad. They're mad more or less at themselves, but they're trying to convince themselves that they're mad at Naofumi. But Naofumi says that it's really not his problem at this point. So once the wave begins, he attacks the giant monster and the main boss, killing it basically instantly, thinking to himself that that was extremely easy. But Naofumi and Venom know that this isn't just over, not right now. He turns as Lark and Therese land in front of them, and their faces are dead serious, scornful at that, and they're ready to fight. I'll give you both a chance to leave. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to give the same mercy to your friend. They're shocked to hear this, asking how did he even know about that? How did they know that they're related to her? And he just says it's a hunch. I'll give you a chance to leave. I know you want revenge, but we did what we needed to do. She invaded our homeworld and was going to kill the other 3 heroes. They say Glass would never have done that, but he cuts them off. I don't know who you are. That's the problem. You invade our world and expect me to show mercy and know exactly what type of people you are. All I saw when I arrived was 3 heroes on the ground, potentially extremely hurt, 1 actually extremely hurt, and the possibility of all 3 of them dying right there. So now, change the scenario. Wouldn't you do the same? They are too angered to hear this and begin to attack Naofumi and Raphtalia, and Naofumi shakes his head, changing into his Agent Venom-like form, and Raphtalia changes as well. They stand there in shock to feel and see the power-up that they just gained from doing such a thing, and begin to realize why Glass had so much trouble, why she didn't come back that day. The fight rages on. They begin to strike each other down, Lark going at Naofumi and Therese going at Raphtalia. It's an even fight, at least that's what they think, but it's really not. The strike that lands on Naofumi just gets absorbed and the scythe gets stuck. Naofumi plunges his hand through Lark's chest and tells him that he gave him a chance, pile driving Lark to the ground and proceeding to stomp on his face, and Naofumi says that he could heal him. He can get him back to basically full health right now, but frankly, he doesn't feel that they even deserve it at this point. They made their choice. He knows how bad, how mad they are. And even against his other judgment, he still decides that through the power that he has and the affinities he has, he heals Lark, healing him entirely, and then backs up. I'll give you another chance. Raphtalia, enough. Raphtalia stops and jumps away from Therese, putting her sword away. I'll give you a chance. You can leave now. I know the waves will be harder in your world, but maybe something will find its way. Maybe you'll figure something out. Lark says the next time they come back, they'll be ready, and that there will not be another chance that they will all die. And Naofumi shrugs. If that's what you want, so be it. Lark and Therese head back into the wave, and Naofumi watches as they leave. Raphtalia points toward the chest of Lark, and she sees a piece of the symbiote. Naofumi says he knows that it's a link to them, and he could use its power if he wants, but if he comes back here to fight, that power will not be with him. And Naofumi just shrugs as he walks away, back toward where the queen is. Raphtalia follows, and the other heroes ask why he didn't kill them, because, frankly, he no remorse killed Glass. But he explains that this situation was different. The other heroes argue that it wasn't, but Naofumi shouts at them, telling them to watch their mouths, that they have no right and no position to even be speaking about this. Naofumi walks away with Raphtalia, and later on begins to speak with the queen, hearing of their new reward, which is to get the village in his name. More specifically, Raphtalia's village. He begins to rebuild, reconstruct, and help out all the demi-humans he can find, and Naofumi is known by all the demi-humans as basically their savior, and it's been like this for a little bit. Naofumi looks off into the distance, not knowing what's ahead of them, and not knowing what will happen with Lark and Therese, wishing that he didn't kill Glass, or Raphtalia didn't kill Glass, but at the end of the day, your choices have its own consequences, and he even knows that. Raphtalia does as well, and they had to do what that needed to be done. They look off and begin thinking and begin wondering what is ahead of them, what trials will eventually be bestowed upon them, but hopefully they'll be able to handle it.
You know, all of you are kinda shoppy, talking about this trials in the future. It doesn't even matter, because the lethal protectors will defeat them.
Naofumi smiles, and so does Raphtalia, as they laugh as this story comes to an end. I know season 2 of Shield Hero is out. I'm tired of people telling me that. Guys, I understand. I get it. There's 2 episodes out. I'm not covering 2 episodes. Someone even asked me that. They were like, why don't you just cover those 2 episodes? That doesn't make sense. I'm not going to do that. There's not enough content. It would add 5 minutes to the fucking content. So there's no reason to do that. I just want to make that clear and transparent. But I hope y'all enjoyed nonetheless. Once half of season 2 at least is out, I might start on that and start doing season 2. But with that said, I hope all y'all enjoyed. I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.
I don't wanna waste what's left.